diseases. But here's the deal. Diseases happen in every garden, especially if you're growing tomatoes or cucumbers or squash. Diseases happen. It's not unusual. But here's the deal. You don't have to live in fear of diseases. You can live with the disease, and so can your plants. And that doesn't mean that we sit around and wait to get sick in the garden. We do preventative care on our bodies so that we don't get sick. And the same is true for our gardens. So we already went through several of my prevention strategies today, and you can get the whole scoop on pest and disease management when you register for Grow Your Own Vegetables, how to implement all the strategies with no extra work in the garden. So you can tackle diseases head on like Linda here did and win more delicious tomatoes. And so take a look. I know I got excited. I already shared the link with you, so I won't go into too much detail about it again. But I do have to say that, you know, these diseases, they don't have to be a big, scary problem, or they don't have to keep you stuck. There's always a way around a pest or a disease, and that's what I help you uncover with the Grow Your Own Vegetables class. That's what we're having a taste of here today, and there's always more in the class. All right, and I just have to say, guys, the class, this is like a secret weapon that can fight any issues that are going to come up in your garden, right? So we totally got your back. All right, so we've been talking about pests and diseases, and now let's talk about weeds. Okay, so secret number 3, weeds are plants too. So you decide if you want to cultivate them or not. This is your choice, all right? Let me tell you a little story. So here is a photo of my first backyard garden 2 days before I planted all my seeds and seedlings. So I want to emphasize that this is 2 days before we were planting all of our vegetables and herbs. And I don't know if you can tell from this photo, but those are weeds that were about 8 feet tall in some cases. Some of them even had huge flowers on them. And flowers mean that they are producing even more weed seeds that would have fallen to the earth and become more weeds. So basically this yard was just so overgrown with weeds. And the homeowner who donated this yard, she kept apologizing to me and telling me she was sorry it was such a mess. So here's a question. Do you think I was worried about these weeds? And here's the deal. Honestly, I was excited because weeds are simply plants. And I know that so many of our vegetable and herb plants started out as weeds. So I knew that my garden was going to thrive here. All right. And so here's some things to know about weeds. They're opportunistic. They love bare soil, and they will take over if you let them. And all they're trying to do, they're actually doing some of the same things that you and I are trying to do. They're trying to improve the soil and protect the soil from erosion. So weeds are not necessarily a bad thing in all cases. They're kind of great. But I know they can also be a nuisance when they get in the way of what you do want. Because if you want to grow what you want to grow, sometimes the weeds can take that away from you. So sometimes they can get a head start on your vegetable plants and kind of take over. But here's the deal. I really wasn't worried about that. I knew if the weeds could grow, so could my vegetables. And I like to play games. I knew I could outcompete the weeds. I'm kind of competitive that way. And indeed, just 2 days later, we had planted out the entire site. And then in another 4 weeks, we were harvesting food completely weed-free. So I have to admit, I did something a bit extreme in this case, which I think you guys can learn from, which is why I want to share it. So first, I did spend some time digging down for some of the deep-rooted weeds because I knew that they would come back if I didn't. So some of the poke weed, I knew if I didn't dig down, it was going to keep coming back if I left the roots there. And that took me a couple hours. And then the second thing I did is I took all the weed material that didn't have flowers or seeds, and I just chopped it up and I dropped it in place. So the first thing I did is I came through and I systematically kind of lopped the top of the plants off, took off all the flowers, all the seeds, and I threw that out. And then I basically chopped everything else up and dropped it in place. And I'll share more about why I did this in just a minute. Now, the third thing I did, so if this were any other site, I would have dumped 2 inches of compost across all the planting beds and then started gardening right on top. knowing that all of that would decompose under the compost. But because lead was a concern in this backyard, heavy metals are a bad scene. You don't want that in your food. So we came in and we dumped 18 cubic yards of soil from a local organic farm right on top. So we knew we were growing in clean soil. So 18 cubic yards of soil, that's 3 big truckloads full. That's like the kind of trucks that have the hydraulics that dump big loads. It was crazy. It was so much soil. Not your everyday truck. So we dumped all this soil over the top of everything that was chopped up. And so now I had these beds that in each planting bed had 10 inches of organic soil and 2 inches of compost as well. And then on a side note, if it were in the fall when this happened and I lived in the suburbs, I may have had access to different materials. I could have collected enough yard waste and fallen leaves and maybe created a layered garden bed, if you've heard of lasagna style, and let it decompose over the winter. But I didn't have access to all of that because I was in the middle of the city in the summer. And our best resource was actually a nearby organic farm. As crazy as that sounds, that was our best resource. So soil was actually the easiest thing for us to get access to. And so here's the question. Were weeds ever an issue again in this garden? And over the course of the season, every once in a while, I did see pokeweed rear its ugly head because those deep roots, but they never grew inside my planting beds, just in the pathways, because I was out competing them in my garden. And in the 5 years I gardened in that site, weeds were never an issue. So I really did outcompete them. Why is that? So the big why is because of that high quality soil and compost. It's not ideal for weeds. Remember, our number one secret to focus on our health plan, that is true for weeds as well. Weeds are opportunistic and they like to improve soil. So when soil is really good, a lot of weeds don't tend to grow in it. But what else can you do? Well, I had a bunch of prevention strategies in place in my garden system. Similar to having prevention for pests and diseases, I'll also have prevention strategies for my weeds as well. And so I wasn't really worried about an occasional weed, which did show up. I had a plan for them. And so when they did show up, here's my methodology, or here's how I would think about it. So what do weeds really want? And this is how you come up with your prevention strategies. What do they really want? So like all of us, they want to grow. And I mentioned they're opportunistic. They take advantage of bare soil. And something you may not know about weeds, there are weed seeds in your soil no matter where you are. They're stored up in your soil from years and years of weeds blowing their seeds all over the place. And there's a lot of them. And so when the opportunity is right, when the soil conditions are just right, those weeds are going to sprout. And they actually have a lot of beneficial qualities, the weeds, if we allow them to coexist in our garden in a peaceful way. So part of conquering weeds is to relax our notion that we have to eradicate them at all costs. A baby weed here or there is not the end of the world for most weeds. Remember, you are in control of this garden, and you don't have to be obsessive compulsive about it if you don't want to. You can be if you want to get lots of food out of your garden and you're like, I absolutely do not tolerate any weeds. And for some weeds, you do have to be a little bit obsessive about them. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this is what I want to show you is how to find a good balance when you're working with weeds in your garden and what to do to keep them from taking over, because they really can be useful in the garden. So just to reiterate, most of our favorite vegetables and herbs, they started out as weeds. And over time, we cultivated them and they became food. So that's something to understand about the weeds. They're very powerful. And here, I'm one behind in my slides. So here is a list of some common weeds. And there's one thing to note right away. Your perspective is everything. So I may not mind a little dandelion, a little poke, or a lamb's quarter in my garden because, well, I'll tell you why in just a minute. But, you might not want those in your garden, but I might not mind them. I might call them edible, and you might call them a weed. So I'm not going to let those plants take over my garden, but I'm also not going to pull them out completely, because I want to take advantage of their edible parts and make sure they don't go to seed and become a problem later. So most of these weeds do not in any way affect my yield of my vegetable and herb garden, as long as I don't let them run rampant. So we can peacefully coexist in the garden. Now, there are a couple of weeds to look out for, and I already saw somebody post this in the chat box earlier. Bermuda grass, quackgrass, bindweed, these can affect your yields. And so these are a couple weeds that you really need to stay on top of to keep them out of your garden at all costs. And in the Grow Your Own Vegetables class, we go into details about how to keep those out of the garden. So if you find yourself feeling super controlling and not wanting any of your weeds in your vegetable garden, you may find it cathartic to eat them, to eat your problems. Seriously, it definitely makes me feel better when I go and I eat my weeds. So you could try some dandelion soup. And keep in mind, all these have medicinal qualities as well. Dandelion soup, the greens are best in the cooler season when the leaves are soft and not as bitter. You can try some sauteed lamb's quarter. And again, the greens are best when the plant is young and soft and not tall and brittle. And here's what I think is exciting about these weeds. They tell us what's going on in our soil. So here's a list of the same weeds and the soil conditions that they like. So find the weed on the list that is your issue and tell me, does the soil condition sound about right to you? So generally, when there's a deficiency in the soil, the right weed pops up to try to balance it out. So what's present in the plant matter, what's present in that weed is oftentimes the nutrient that the soil needs. Nature is super cool that way. It's pretty awesome. So remember, when I was talking about the backyard that I transformed, I mentioned that I chopped up my weeds and I dropped them in place, but not the seeds. I don't want to add those extra weed seeds back into the soil, but chopping and dropping all of that plant material, I was putting those nutrients back into the soil. It's pretty neat, right? So you can use this list in two ways. You can start to read what's going on in the soil by what weeds are growing, and you can start to improve your soil based on what the weed is telling you is lacking. So dandelion and burdock roots are deep, breaking up clay soil. So maybe you can find other ways to aerate that soil. Worms love to aerate the soil. So how could you invite them in to start tunneling through? And this is why you see people who have lots of clay chopping and dropping lots of organic material on top of layered organic materials on top of their clay soil, because it invites earthworms in to start chewing it up and tunneling through. And when you look at your garden system holistically, you can find lots of ways to address your weed issues. So one thing I love doing is to outcompete the weeds. I plant my crops close together and quickly they create a lush green canopy so that no sunlight can reach the soil and no weed seeds can germinate. And I've got lots of other tricks up my sleeve, too many to name here, that I've discovered through the years. And of course, we go into depth in this topic in the Grow Your Own Vegetables class so you can enjoy the harvest you want without worrying about all these weeds that you don't want. All right, so remember, weeds, they're plants too. So you get to decide if you want to cultivate them or not. And most of them are not issues in the garden. You can easily outcompete them. You can easily get what you want out of your garden and coexist peacefully with these weeds. Okay, so for all of you who stuck with me to the end, remember, I was going to show you my 5-step process for eliminating problems in the garden. So here is an exercise. We've been doing this throughout this live presentation. This is essentially what we've been doing, but this is the process that we've been using. So for when you run into something that you don't want in your garden, this is the exercise to walk you through the problem, all right? So the first step is, what is it you're trying to eliminate from your garden? That's the first step, is identifying the what. And then the next step is, what does the pest, disease, or weed want out of your garden? So remember with the example of the squash vine borer, we were looking at what it wanted, what it did, we were describing it. And that's actually the third step, is describing the problem in 10 different ways, maybe look at it from the pest, disease, or weeds point of view to see what it really wants. And when you describe those, what it wants in very specific language, sometimes you can figure out the next step, which is step 4, figuring out a place to interrupt the life cycle of whatever the bully is and have the most impact. And I'll give you a hint. With insects, it's usually at the egg stage that you want to interrupt the life cycle. And then the 5th step is the critical, this is like the critical step. This is what most people don't do, and this is what makes a successful gardener. So most people will identify the problem, fix the problem, but what you really need to do is you need to incorporate weekly preventative habits into your garden system so that it keeps these bullies from being a threat again. And remember, when you register for Grow Your Own Vegetables, I'm going to share all 42 of my prevention strategies so you can get started right away, putting them all to work for you, because I've seen what works all around the world. I've taught people from 6 different continents in 120 different countries. We can take the guesswork out of this process for you when you register for class. You really got to find a system and do incremental weekly routines that keep all of these things at bay. Otherwise, they get out of control, all right? That's not what you want. When things are out of control, they're harder to solve. Prevention is where it's at. It's so much easier, all right? Okay, so now you know the secrets for being the boss of your own vegetable and herb garden. You can do this.
Okay, so here's a question for you. If you followed what I showed you in secret number 1 and you created a health plan full of compost, worm poop, and organic matter, and then you followed all the preventative care tips I shared to systematically create more of what you do want, which are healthy vegetable and herb plants, do you think that your garden would be more successful? Isn't this exciting? So it's impossible for me to cover everything on pests, diseases, and weeds in this final episode of the Joyful Gardener virtual event, but I tried to cover as much as possible. And speaking of this event, it has been 8 days of garden joy, right? What a whirlwind it's been this week together. It seems like just yesterday we were back at the start of the Circle of Awesome, the step-by-step system, the Circle of Awesome. We started with climate and soil and compost, and then we moved into plants and water, mindset, and finally harvesting. And now that we covered pests, diseases, and weeds, it is over. And can you see how this circular system, that it will help you continue to learn when you keep going back to the beginning and going through these 8 steps. So thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for growing food and making the world a better place. Now, we have covered a lot, and listeners are raving about this event, saying they've learned so much. But here's the deal. We only scratched the surface during this docu-series of what it takes to be a successful vegetable and herb gardener. And maybe you missed some of it. So what's next? So now really is the time to take advantage of an awesome opportunity that we have here today to have a wildly successful growing season, no matter where you live and no matter how much growing space you have. This Joyful Gardener docu-series is only a fraction, maybe 20% of what's inside of our Grow Your Own Vegetables course. We peeled back the curtain just a little bit. There's so many more lessons inside, and we haven't even covered all of the templates and the notebooks that help you learn. And those all come along with the course as well. Plus the complete Circle of Awesome, helping you make decisions step by step for more fun and more harvest. So the full Grow Your Own Vegetables course gives you everything you need on demand, lifetime access so you can continue to improve year after year. Because if you are growing vegetables and herbs or thinking about getting started, there's no reason you couldn't shortcut the 10 years of gardening experience I have and create a garden system that delivers nutrient-rich, fresh food to your plate every year so that you can lead a happy, healthy life. Now, I've seen all the obstacles that stand in people's way when it comes to gardening, and I've helped hundreds of thousands of people from 6 different continents bust through those challenges. So I'm confident that I can help you overcome whatever is holding you back from getting started or growing your most abundant harvest yet. So you tuned in to a lot of free lessons this week, and here's what you need to know about this opportunity that's available for you here today. Grow Your Own Vegetables, the course registration is officially open, but only for a short time. So in the Grow Your Own Vegetables course, I share all my prevention techniques for the terrible three, and they are integrated into my garden system. So if you follow my system step by step, you focus on what you do want, lots of vegetables and herbs, without worrying about those pests, diseases, and weeds. The class walks you through the process of working with your local conditions and creating a roadmap for the entire season so that you can simplify your garden routine and maximize your harvests. For beginners, I can help you make good decisions so that you can quickly grow your first vegetable and herb garden that puts food on your table. Don't you suppose setting up your garden would be easier if you had a guide with shopping lists and checklists to follow? For growers with a bit more experience who haven't seen the success that they want, I can help you save the agony of doing what doesn't work. I can help you create a whole new system where all the pieces work together to bring in a successful harvest. And for very seasoned growers, keep in mind that I was a farmer, so my goal was always to maximize my yields. Sometimes to get the bigger harvest results that you're looking for, it means changing your garden routine completely. You'll discover how to put my strategies to work for you. Students of all experience levels find what they need in this course because we've structured it to show you the building blocks first, the essential building blocks, and then we build on that and share more advanced lessons too. The course is typically available for $497 on our website, and we've had plenty of people register at that price and find tremendous value. But it's available now for just $297. That is 40% off, because now is the time to gear up for a fabulous growing season. And just to put this in perspective, this may be the best $297 you ever spend on groceries. Not only are they homegrown and organic, but now you know how to grow them whenever you want, indoors or outdoors, and for a fraction of the price that you would pay at the grocery store or the farmer's market. Remember, I have had students who grew $582 worth of groceries in their first 36 days. If that's the first 5 weeks, imagine how much you can grow in a whole year. I bet you can grow more than $297 worth of vegetables and herbs. Imagine that. This is the class that helps you grow a produce aisle right at home. Take full advantage of this class because it can make most of your vegetable and herbs free from now on. A vegetable and herb garden that gets easier and easier year after year. It is the gift that keeps on giving. This course has helped people who've never planted a seed finally get started. It walks them through step by step until they have the confidence to grow on their own. This course has helped people simplify their garden routines and helped people double their yields too. And registration is open now. So here is your chance. This course has helped people who've never planted a seed finally get started. It walks them through step by step until they have the confidence to grow on their own. This course has helped people simplify their garden routines, reducing the amount of time it takes to grow food. And it's helped people double their yields too, for more flavor and more fun. And registration is open now. So here is your chance. Now, this course, it's $297, which is 40% off. It's already a steal. But the whole point of this class is to get you out there growing. So we've added some sweet bonuses for you as well. The first bonus is the entire Joyful Gardener virtual event 8-part docuseries. Now, while many of the clips have been from the course, there's never seen before case studies included in this docuseries to show how other people are putting these lessons into practice for a more joyful garden. So this 8-part docuseries event is valued at $297 just by itself. The second bonus is my How to Grow $400 worth of vegetables and herbs in 40 days class. This class is typically available on our website for $197, but it's included in this deal for free. And here's why. This class is a quick start for new growers who want to see food and lots of fresh greens and root vegetables. So if you've never planted a seed, you're going to start with this bonus material to learn the basics. This is for people who've never planted a seed. And guess what? 2 months later, you may be bragging to your friends about your first $400 worth of vegetables and herbs grown right at home. The third bonus is why our students enjoy more success in their gardens. You want a garden hotline? Well, you have got it. You receive 2 months free membership in Harvest Club. Members enjoy getting their questions answered by garden experts online, along with monthly resources unlike anything you find on YouTube or Google. Now, as your garden grows, questions come up. And this Harvest Club and our team is here for you. So think of what it might mean for you when you run into problems and you're not sure what to do. The fourth bonus is my ebook, 5 Delicious Recipes for Garden Greens, Exciting Plant-Based Recipes to Please Even the Pickiest Eaters, because you're going to have a bunch of new vegetables to eat, and you're going to need some new and exciting recipes. This book has helped hundreds of growers convince their loved ones that eating vegetables doesn't have to be boring. So the fifth bonus is a pest and disease mini course, because while the Grow Your Own Vegetables course has 42 prevention strategies built into the Circle of Awesome system, it is nice to have all of that in one place, along with all of the organic remedies for when issues do come up. So you got it all in this pest and disease mini course. So that's everything you get, and you get it all for $297 today. When you're ready to register for class, there's a button on your screen that says register now. Click that button and you'll be taken to our secure order form to sign up. And when you enter all your details, you are in. Your first lesson is there waiting for you. And each week after you register, you're going to receive the next lesson. So time is of the essence here, because registration closes in just a couple days with this offer. And here's why you want to join now. Your growing season, it is cyclical. And the right time to get started, it is always now. There is always a stage of your garden that you can be improving. Whether you're planning for the growing season, building your garden projects, or planting and harvesting your food, you're going to find there is a lesson for everything. And it helps to spread it out over time to create a system that is going to simplify your routine and make gardening a part of your lifestyle year-round. This course helps you get everything done in manageable chunks so that you're not overwhelmed during the growing season when things heat up. So I have seen people put this off who think that they can do this later. They keep putting it off, and either they never get started or they miss out completely, and then they realize that they need to try again the next year. So don't put this off. Seasons change quicker than you realize. It's easy to get stuck when you try to transform your life all by yourself. This is the best way to eliminate all the struggle and get the results that you're looking for now. All right, so you might be thinking, I can figure all this out on my own because Google is awesome and there are a ton of garden books and YouTube is awesome. Well, how long have you already spent trying to figure all of this out on your own? Google and books, they can't talk to you. They can't help you compare ideas that are going to work for your unique conditions. When you're searching for information online, Google and books, they leave out important assumptions that they've made. So it's hard to know which advice to take. You're never going to get that search time back. So instead, save all that time and effort, because we've already done that work for you in creating this system where you learn to make decisions that are right for your unique conditions. Plus, you can ask our team anything and get your questions answered directly. Join Grow Your Own Vegetables now. This is your opportunity to shortcut 10 years of experience and take massive action in your garden. So here's what I want you to know about me. I am no one special. I have a busy schedule just like you. I have to put food on my table just like you. And I actually really struggle sometimes to remember to get outside and garden. And that's why I love my garden system, because it makes gardening so it's just part of my daily habits and my daily routines. And so that I know what I need to do each day to keep bringing food to that table year round. Now, the good news is all of this is risk-free. The course comes with a full money-back 30-day guarantee, no questions asked. You've got nothing to lose when you register. But if you don't register, you may stay stuck in your garden without knowing how to move forward. So go ahead and click on the Register Now button and get started today. All right, so one final thought. Here's why this class works. Habits, they're really hard to break, right? So I've already figured out all of this, how to integrate gardening into my own life, but this isn't about me. It is about you. So if you leave now, you might think you learned a lot of cool stuff during this Joyful Gardener virtual event, but my guess is that by tomorrow, you're going to already have slipped back into your normal routine, right? You just do what you always knew how to do. But here's the deal. If you want real, lasting change in your life, you need repeated exposure to what works, to a community of gardeners who are already committed to a routine, so you can get the support and access to a garden system that walks you through step by step. And that's what you get when you invest today. So go ahead, click the Register Now button, and I look forward to seeing your harvest photos. Once you've been through my class and you have your garden system all set up, imagine simply walking outside or maybe to your closet garden inside and harvesting your meal just a couple feet from harvest to plate. That makes life a little easier and so much more joyful, right? So let me help take the guesswork out of your garden and enjoy your best harvest yet. Go ahead, click the Register Now button. Remember, Lesson 1 is waiting for you right now. We're getting started and registration is closing soon. All right, take care, everybody. And wherever you are, thank you so much for participating in the Joyful Gardener virtual event. Thank you for planting seeds for a healthy home, a healthy body, and a healthy planet. Peace and carrots to you, my friend.
How do